And welcome to One More Thing podcast. Today, Dr. Larry Bachman and I will be unpacking the Triggered series, week 3.
Sure. I really am intrigued by the series. And so when we say triggered, explain to me, the metaphor. What does it mean to you? Tell me.
In all of the research I did pertaining to triggers and being triggered, triggering, it has to do a lot with something that sets us off, like some sort of thing that initiates a strong emotional response or reaction. And there are multiple causes that sort of manifest that triggering. It could be something traumatic or horrific in my past, when I see a place that me and my ex went to lunch occasionally, or whatever, or a smell even, or a time of year when I've lost a loved one to a horrible disease at that time of year. But it can also be not so sort of, traumatic. It can just be like your preferences, like the way you drive in traffic. Someone triggers you. You're trying to get to a place, you're late. So it's some sort of event that ignites within us something that's already there, that triggers us to have this emotional response. And
Sometimes it's anger.
Yes, right.
Sometimes it could be fear.
That's right.
Sometimes it could be horror or anxiety or anything that shut you down. Sometimes it could trigger could take you into a place of depression.
That's right.
Because you remember something that was so devastating, or back into the grief cycle.
That's right.
So it can trigger. But interesting how we pull that in the biblical narrative. So tell me about the first week, triggered.
Yeah, the whole idea behind this was, as we're leading, because I knew I wanted something the 3 weeks leading into Palm Sunday and Easter. And as I read the stories that led up to that, I noticed this pattern within these episodes that Jesus found himself sort of embroiled in. And so week 1, where we initiated the Triggered series, he was confronted by the Pharisees. And they asked him, "Are you the Son of God? Are you the Messiah?" And I love that phrase in the Greek, the tell us plainly.
Right.
When you do a deep dive into that, they were basically saying, tell us not just plainly, like yes or no, but give us rational explanations as to why we should place this label upon you, Son of God, Messiah, or why we should reject you. So they were sort of the gatekeepers of the truth about who God was. And it was their elevation of themselves to this high esteem that they placed themselves to say, we will reject or accept the rational explanation you give as to why you are or aren't. And Jesus goes, I've already told you.
Yeah.
Not through rational explanation, but through relational experience.
I think also say these words to incriminate yourself so that we can get rid of you.
That's it.
Boldly.
That's right.
And he was too crafty.
That's right.
Hey, I've already told you. Look at what I do.
That's it.
That's interesting.
That's it.
That was week 1. That was a great teaching. Week 2 was around the story of
Lazarus. Yeah, the raising of Lazarus from the dead. And you read that story, and it's chock full of wonderful ideas that guys like you and I, who have these creative minds that dig deep into the text. It's not just about a man being raised from the dead. There are things that happen in that story. The confrontation with Martha and Mary. If you would have been here,
right,
then he wouldn't have died. They both say the exact same phrase. And I use that as sort of the idea we're triggered when we bargain with God, when things aren't working out in our life. So we go to this bargaining. And then basically the move the stone. Oh, wait. He's been in there 4 days. He's going to stink. So I use that as this idea of, hey, what you continue to hide will not heal.
Right.
And then, of course, the big one was the grave clothes. As Jesus says, unbind him, loose him, and set him free. And then you have that, and I think I did have 4 points on that one. And then the Pharisees, again, they saw the miracle. They believed the miracle, and they decided to keep the old grave clothes on.
Yeah.
And I related that back to us.
Yeah.
Is we hear the truth, we know it, and we still decide to not try to become.
And they were triggered, too, to say, let's go. We got to get rid of this guy.
So
the events are unfolding. So you're seeing, these different stories and how, are you the Son of God? We want to get rid of you. And then all of a sudden you raise Lazarus from the dead. I love this thing. 4 days. Here's the thing. If he'd brought him back in 3 days, maybe no big deal.
Right.
But 4 days, you're outside the window of what their understanding was.
That's
4
right.
days is, no, that's beyond. So but Trigger, we need to get rid of this guy. It was a miracle. Let's get rid of him.
Yep.
And then yesterday, on the weekend, you talked about Mary and
The anointing,
alabaster.
the alabaster jar. And that one, it was sort of a flip the script, that the Pharisees are still triggered. So it says at the end of the text, they met secretly how to get rid of him. But this was not anything that Jesus did. It was the people were triggered because of what was done for him. And so that was a really nice way to sort of, I think, end that portion of the series, was here's this woman with probably the most expensive possession that she has. And she opens it, and she doesn't just put a few drops, you know. I'm a big whiskey guy. I have some very, very rare whiskey, and I couldn't imagine if someone came to my house and mixed it with Coke, you know, like that's not what you do with that. I would be triggered, to use that as an analogy.
Right.
Or my tennis shoes. I have some very, I've been gifted some very expensive shoes. I don't wear those every day, and I could imagine going out and running in the mud with those.
Right.
I would say it's a waste. You've wasted that whiskey. You've wasted the value of these shoes. And this is exactly how the people around the table who are closest to Jesus respond to Mary. And they're like, it's a waste. And so I use that when Jesus stands up and goes, how dare you berate her?
Right.
And it's just like her action moved his heart, because I think Jesus saw something in that action that resembled God's love for us.
And I love your segue there. You know what some consider waste, others may consider worship.
That's right.
And that was a brilliant point that you made. And I think that's very true, that, you're wasting your time, you're wasting here. No, that's what we do. It's who we are. It's in our response to what we think is a greater call. So
that's right.
So that's it. But that was a great handling of the text. I love the story. I love the fact that, we work our way through it. And the story will never be forgotten.
Never.
I thought you handled the poor comment very well. And if you guys don't know what that was, then this is the teaser. Go back and watch it.
That's right.
So as a matter of fact, if we're intriguing you today with this one more thing, go back and watch all three of these, which leads to week number 4, which I get the joy to do, and a compliment to you. I thought, well, the Triggered series works also for Palm Sunday and Easter. So what are the things that on Palm Sunday were the triggers? And we're going to talk about that this weekend. And the fact Jesus comes down, and I'm going to do a little twist and say not only did Jesus trigger them, but some of what they did triggered Jesus. So
That's right.
and we'll examine that a little bit, but it should be fun this weekend, and also to Easter. And then let's look down the road, and then we're just launching a new series. We haven't exactly named it yet, but after that. But it's going to be fun. It's a great place to be.
Yes.
The mood is good. The vibe is right. The band is incredible.
That's right.
And the teaching is being responded to very well.
That's
We're in
right.
a great community, and you're a great part of that. I want to say thank you publicly.
Oh, thanks a lot, Dr. Bacham. It's an honor to be here. It's very rare, number one, like you said, to have a couple of PhDs on staff together who actually align theologically. And there's a lot I learned from you, and a lot of things I steal from you in the way you think and approach the text. And it triggers me sometimes to where there are things that are thought about us that aren't necessarily true. And when I get triggered, I want to respond.
I understand.
And what I've learned from you is that's not always the best response. Responding is not always the best response. Sometimes we have to let it play out and let God defend us.
Yeah. Criticism of the best criticism of the negative is the practice of the positive.
That's it.
We just double down on who we are, and it's not our statement of belief. I had someone recently say, well, what's your statement of belief? I said, look at what we do.
There you go.
Because a lot of people say what they believe, and they're not very kind. Some of them are just downright mean.
Yeah.
But I would simply tell people who we are. We are people infused with the Spirit of God. We're kind. We're benevolent. We want to be the hands and feet of Jesus to the world. And whether you believe in, this statement of belief or that, or whether you're on this side or that, it's not just. There's always disputes in the statements of belief, and I just don't want to get in that argument game. But life is good for us. So, but again, thank you for everything, and I look forward to this weekend and next weekend.
It's going to be awesome.
We'll tune in again next week.
Thanks, Dr. Bacham.
Pleasure.